What's up, everyone? Welcome back to 20 Minutes with Multz. In today's episode, we're talking about the New York Yankees, and that's it. As we know, the Yankees just got swept in the American League Championship Series by their arch postseason rival, the Houston Astros. Now that their season has come to an ugly end, an ugly offseason may be looming. We're going to take a step back and look at some of the reasons the Yankees got to where they got in 2022, reaching the playoffs, but then struggling from there on. We'll talk about all that. Then we're going to look ahead to the offseason. Will Aaron Judge stay a Yankee? Will other players opt out? What does the Yankee free agent class look like? And most importantly, what is the deal with Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone? First, we'll say if I think they're going to come back, and also if they should come back on a more general note. We'll talk about all that and more coming up in this episode. If you like what you hear, please be sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you think about the 2022 Yankees. Are you impressed with their season? Are you disappointed? And what do you think needs to happen in the offseason? Let me know all those things down below. And now let's dive in. So we're going to cover 5 specific areas regarding the last 12 months in the New York Yankees world, starting from the beginning of last offseason and looking ahead through to the upcoming winter months. We're going to talk about key injuries that severely impacted the team throughout the season. We're going to talk about some key hitters not named Aaron Judge having atrocious stretches that carried them through the playoffs. We're going to talk about trades and how all of the trades the Yankees made, except for one, ended up blowing up in their faces in the last calendar year. Then we're going to talk about the shortstop fiasco, how the Yankees ended up with Isiah Kiner-Falefa, how he ended up being pretty disappointing, and what this means looking ahead. And then we're going to close with our biggest and most important discussion, the offseason. What's Aaron Judge going to do? What's Anthony Rizzo going to do? What's going to happen with Boone and Cashman? And what's going to happen with the other Yankee free agents and other guys they may try to bring in? So with all that, I want to preface with the following few statements before we really start grilling the last 12 months in Yankee land. They did win 99 games. They did win the American League East. Aaron Judge did put together the single greatest offensive campaign in American League history. They did lead the major leagues in home runs and runs scored, and this roster is very, very talented. The Yankees are not a bad team. For a lot of the fans out there who are furious about the way the season ended, that's understandable. But you need to take a quick step back and realize that the Yankees have had 30 consecutive winning seasons. They have made the playoffs in almost every year of the 2000s. And would you rather be the Yankees or a team like the Kansas City Royals that since their World Championship has been in perpetual rebuild mode for the last half decade and completely out of everything? Just a few things to consider as we dive in. But let's get into that first topic, the bullpen. The Yankees bullpen has been its strength for years. Think back to 2017. They basically got to the ALCS on the back of their bullpen between guys like Aroldis Chapman, Dellin Betances, David Robertson, Tommy Kahnle, and the breakout sensation Chad Green. The Yankees had gobs of depth that they kept adding to as the seasons went on. But if you look at the Yankee pen, by the end of 2022, it was really their weakness. Injuries played a big role in that. Look at these numbers of all the guys that the Yankees had over the course of 2022 that ended up getting hurt. Michael King, Chad Green, Ron Marinaccio, Scott Effross, Zach Britton, and Aroldis Chapman. For one reason or another, none of these guys were there for the playoffs. That's almost a whole bullpen's worth of guys that definitely had a positive impact in some, most, or all of their 2022 campaigns not being there. And think about this, the combined earned run average between those 6 guys plus one more name I'll add in there, hard-throwing right-hander Steven Ridings, who didn't pitch in the majors this year, but we'll throw his name in there for some recognition. Those 7 combined arms had an ERA of 2.82 and almost 160 innings this past year. Michael King, Scott Effross, Zach Britton, guys who were all big ground ball guys who were incredibly important. King was a multi-inning guy setting up Clay Holmes. Effross was a lefty specialist despite throwing from the right side. Funky delivery, really tough to square up. Britton has had a hugely successful career as a reliever, but this season was lost on him. Chad Green was a fearless pitcher, a big fly ball guy, but was never afraid to come at you. All those guys gone. That's not an excuse for the team getting swept by Houston, but it is to say that without all of those weapons in their bullpen when they had to go up against a Houston bullpen that is just as good as the Yankees pen used to be. It shows you how important bullpens are and the impact that a depleted bullpen can have on a team in October. So now we're going to talk about some second half lineup deficiencies and how that greatly affected the Yankees. I'm not going to talk yet about Aaron Judge. I'm going to save him for our last segment about the offseason, since he is the face of the Yankees' upcoming offseason. I'm going to focus on these 4 hitters instead: Anthony Rizzo, Josh Donaldson, DJ LeMahieu, and Giancarlo Stanton. 4 veteran hitters on this team making almost $100 million combined, who were expected to be the other 4 big guys in that lineup, rounding out the top 5 of the lineup around Judge. Now, here's the thing. Anthony Rizzo and Giancarlo Stanton had decent postseasons. Rizzo was better than decent. But this is what these guys did starting at certain points in the season, and it just shows you how much of a drop-off there was. Anthony Rizzo was the player of the month in April. He hit almost 300 and hit the cover off the ball. Since the month of May began, Rizzo batted .214 with a .768 OPS. For a guy who's used to putting an OPS almost 100 points higher, that's a big drop-off. His defense is irrelevant when you consider that he's hitting for that low of an average. Then there's Stanton. Now, we know that Stanton had a completely lost season after he put the team on his back along with Judge in 2021. Since the calendar shifted to June, Stanton appeared in only 70 games and batted .166 with a .697 OPS. Now, Stanton has certainly had the ups and downs in his career. He's never had a season this bad. And again, considering how good he was in 2021, it was completely and utterly shocking. DJ LeMahieu, we know that the toe injury that he suffered that sidelined him for basically the entire second half of the season and zapped all the thump out of his bat and took him out of the playoff picture for the Yankees. It was crippling. Since the calendar shifted to August, LeMahieu hit .195 with an unbelievably low .509 OPS. What does that mean? LeMahieu hit for basically zero power. Pretty much zero. Now, he's not expected to slug like Rizzo or Stanton, but his slugging percentage and his OPS are supposed to be around 780 to the low 800s. Higher would be even better, but around 800, let's say. When it's 300 points below that, something is up, and him not being there, your high contact leadoff hitter, devastating for the Yankees on the playoff push. And then there's the cream of the crop, Josh Donaldson. Now, we're going to talk about the trade itself coming up next, but Donaldson was brought in for the most honest of intentions. He still hit almost .250 with an OPS over 800 in his season in Minnesota in 2021. And he is still an elite defender. Say what you want about his offense, it's probably all true, but he is still a Gold Glove caliber third baseman. I'm kind of surprised he didn't get a Gold Glove nomination at the end of the season, but Juan Soto got one, so who the heck knows what goes on there. But this is where Donaldson's offensive ineptitude really comes to light. He ended up posting an OPS of .847 in the month of May, which you may not have realized considering his season stats as a whole, as you can see, were atrocious. But his OPS was not higher than .759 in any other month of the season, and it was under .700 in multiple months of the season. That's not good. And again, his defense is elite. That is true, but he's making $25 million. He's making almost as much money as Giancarlo Stanton. He's making almost what Rizzo and LeMahieu make combined. He is one of the 4 highest paid New York Yankees. And when you have that status, you cannot bat .220-something, OPS under 700, striking out every at-bat of the postseason, striking out in every single situation with runners on base, it seems like. That's all really, really bad. And when you think about those 4 hitters that I talked about, those were the 4 guys supposed to be batting around the top 5 with Judge. None of them played to their baseball cards. Most of them, in fact, all of them, were injured at one point or another in the season. Did that affect their overall campaigns? Probably, but they were all back and had to contribute in the second half of the season and in October, and they didn't. And it definitely hurt the Yankees in the stretch run. All right, now it's time to talk trades. Brian Cashman has made tons in his tenure as Yankees GM, spanning nearly a quarter century. and a lot of them in recent years have actually been net positives for the organization. In 2016, with the writing on the wall and no playoff trip incoming, he traded away Aroldis Chapman for prospects that included Gleyber Torres, who's been one of the best and most important players on the Yankees in the last 5 years. In 2017, with Chase Headley struggling at third base and more bullpen help needed, he brought in Todd Frazier, David Robertson, and Tommy Kahnle from the White Sox, and the Yankees would not get as close as they got to the 2017 World Series without those three guys. In 2018, in that calendar year, Cashman made 4 trades that provided huge impacts for the Yankees, both in the short and long terms, bringing in bullpen pieces like Michael King from Miami and Zach Britton from Baltimore, along with a catalyst like Luke Voit from the Cardinals, and of course, Giancarlo Stanton, who has put together multiple 30-home run campaigns and has also been the Yankees' best playoff hitter since he arrived. Then we get to 2021 and the hugely positive trades for Clay Holmes and Wandy Peralta to anchor the bullpen and Anthony Rizzo to anchor first base. Now, there have been some trades made in that time that didn't go so well. The Joey Gallo trade was not a good one. The Sonny Gray trade in 2017 was also not a good one. Cashman has definitely not batted 1,000 in the trading department, but he's had some successes. Until 2022. When it seemed like every single trade he made was a zero. Let's start, of course, in the offseason with the big one, bringing in Josh Donaldson, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and catcher Ben Rortvedt from the Twins in exchange for Gio Urshela and Gary Sanchez. Now, Sanchez had to go. He was the most booed, most scrutinized player on the Yankees. Whatever magic he brought to the table in 2016 and 17 was long gone, and the Yankees needed to move on from him. Gio Urshela was a nice piece, but Josh Donaldson was supposed to be a huge upgrade both offensively and defensively. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa was supposed to be the stopgap shortstop, bridging between the current situation and the Yankees' top prospects coming up. The Yankees didn't want to spend on a big offseason shortstop like Corey Seager or Carlos Correa. Kiner-Falefa brought in. And Ben Rortvedt was supposed to be a lefty bat to platoon with Kyle Higashioka behind the plate. Let's just say the deal didn't work out for the Yankees. We talked about how bad Donaldson was. We'll talk a little bit more about Kiner-Falefa coming up next, but suffice it to say, nothing he did seemed to work, and he became the most booed and most scrutinized player on this team by the end of 2022. And some of you may have never even heard of Ben Rortvedt. There's a reason for that. He never played for the Yankees in 2022, and yet they traded for him. Ouch. Then we get to the 2022 trade deadline, and every trade was a disaster for one reason or another. The Andrew Benintendi trade on paper was a brilliant idea, a speedy, high-contact lefty bat that could anchor left field, except that Benintendi hit .254 with the Yankees and broke his hamate bone, so he didn't appear once in the playoffs. And just like we talked about with DJ LeMahieu's absence being really felt, so was Benintendi's. Then there's the awful Oakland A's trade for Frankie Montas and Lou Trevino. Cashman didn't learn his lesson after bringing in Sonny Gray a few years ago. It seems like Oakland A's pitchers who are used to pitching in front of 5,000 fans don't translate well to then pitching in front of the most emphatic and passionate crowd and in front of 45,000 fans. Montas had an ERA of 6.35 with the Yankees, and Trevino had a whip of nearly 1.3. That's a ton of runners he put on base. It will never cease to amaze me that by the end of the season, Aaron Boone's go-to relief pitcher with inherited runners on base was a guy who himself tended to put a lot of runners on base. He did it a lot in the regular season. He did it in Game 3 of the ALCS, and that blew the game open from 2-0 to 5-0. Probably the worst decision Aaron Boone made in the entire postseason, going to Trevino in that situation to relieve Garrett Cole. But we'll talk about more of that in a minute. Then, of course, there's the last trade, the Scott Effross trade. The Yankees traded one of their best pitching prospects, Hayden Wesneski, for Effross. And the reason they had to part with such a high prospect is because Effross has 5 years of team control, including the one he was pitching in this year. And Effross was really solid for the Yankees, except that he had to go on the injured list. Then he went down with Tommy John surgery. That's awful. He's one of the best relievers on the team, and he's not going to pitch in 2023. While Wesneski looked really good for the Cubs and is an early favorite, among others, to win the National League Rookie of the Year next year. He is certainly the favorite among National League pitchers right now. he had an ERA under 3. So, suffice it to say, Brian Cashman has had success making trades in the past, but this year he traded away a lot of good young prospects, especially a ton of pitchers. Ken Waldichuk, Luis Medina, J.P. Sears, Hayden Wesneski, and a lot of other talents traded away as well. None of those guys are going to be Yankees, while a lot of the guys the Yankees brought in are either hurt or they're hurt and they're incoming free agents. All around, the 2022 trade deadline was a disaster for the Yankees, and Cashman sold a ton of the future for a present that ended up bombing. Next, we're going to talk about a position mired in more controversy than any other on the Yankees, and that's shortstop. Since 2019, when Didi Gregorius returned from Tommy John surgery, only to show that neither his bat nor his arm at shortstop were the same as before, the Yankees have had no solutions. In 2020 and 21, they patched up that position with Gleyber Torres and Gio Urshela, neither of whom are shortstops. No wonder it didn't work out. Then in this offseason, heading into 2022, they had the chance to pursue Corey Seager, Carlos Correa, Trevor Story, or Marcus Semien. Instead, they passed up on all those guys to bring in Isaiah Kiner-Falefa along with Josh Donaldson's big money. Now, Kiner-Falefa only hit .261 with an 84 OPS plus. That number means he was almost 20% worse than an average MLB hitter. Not to mention he made over a dozen errors at shortstop, and his defense was so poor that he got benched in the playoffs for multiple rookies. Said that earlier, I'm saying it again, because you really have to be that bad as a veteran MLB player who's won Gold Gloves to get benched for rookies. Now, the Yankees have a chance again this offseason to pursue a hugely talented shortstop, like Dansby Swanson, Xander Bogaerts, if he opts out from the Red Sox, Carlos Correa, who's back on the market after opting out of his deal with the Twins, or Trey Turner. They can get any one of those guys. But it's unlikely that they do because they're either going to keep Kiner-Falefa or promote one of their top 2 prospects. Oswald Peraza, the number 50 prospect in baseball, who got a taste of the show in September, or Anthony Volpe, the number 5 prospect in baseball, with all the weight of the world on his shoulders. It's really unfortunate that those 2 guys are being heralded as the solutions at shortstop, just considering what the Yankees have passed up on. The pressure is now on Peraza and Volpe to be super talented all-around players. Otherwise, the justifications the Yankees have made in the last few years of keeping them over bringing in other guys will end up being another disaster and a big blemish on Cashman's tenure. All told, shortstop is a position the Yankees don't have a long-term solution to yet. We haven't seen what the youngins can do, and everybody they've brought in to play that position since Didi came and left has been a disaster. Now we get to the end of the episode and we got to talk about the offseason. Let's start at the top of the organization. What should happen with Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman? Simply put, they've both got to go. And it's for pretty similar reasons, actually. Their decision-making continues to get worse and worse. As I said earlier in the episode, Brian Cashman's 2022 has been a nightmare. Every trade he made has blown up in his face. All while he has passed up on every big free agent who could have had a huge impact on the organization. And it's not just the moves he's made this year, it's other ones as well. Let's talk about it all. Taking on Josh Donaldson's money was a disaster. Extending Aaron Hicks for 7 years was a disaster. Taking on Giancarlo Stanton's albatross contract, despite how good of a player he is, and he is a good player, but for that kind of money for that many years, yeesh, disaster. Stanton being here was the number one reason the Yankees didn't sign Bryce Harper or Manny Machado, and it's the number one reason they didn't pursue the starting pitching depth they needed before 2019. All these trickle-down effects. Furthermore, the Yankees as an organization have really struggled to develop position players. They really have. Besides Aaron Judge, you can't really think of any other position player that's been a superstar for the Yankees. About time changes are made at the top of the organization to prove to the fan base that the Yankees are committed to going in a different direction than what they've been trying in order to be better than Houston. Whatever's been going on for the last half decade, it's not working. Something has to change. And that goes for the manager's office as well. Aaron Boone is an awful decision maker. Whether it's batting middle of the lineup power hitters like Judge, Rizzo, or Gleyber Torres as leadoff guys, or using his bullpen in bizarre and incorrect ways like bringing in Clark Schmidt to lose you Game 3 of the ALDS, or Lou Trevino to bail you out of a bases-loaded nobody-out situation in Game 3 of the ALCS, none of it, and I mean none of it, ended up being the right move. I think the Yankees have to go in a different direction at manager, and it's the only way the fan base is going to be satisfied. And I happen to agree with both of the things I've said regarding Cashman and Boone. There's just no other way to say it. What the Yankees have done since 2017 has gotten them to the playoffs. It has not gotten them past Houston. If that's where this organization is going to stand as their point of satisfaction, then say it. Instead of saying over and over again, you're trying to be a championship contender, but knowing deep down you're not better than Houston. The Yankees need to be the Yankees again. I'm unsure if that's going to happen. I surely hope it does. Now, let's talk about what the Yankees should do with their actual roster. When it comes to the roster, the first big question is what to do about Aaron Judge. Look at these numbers and tell me this man doesn't deserve everything that he gets, contract-wise. Look at all the stats he led Major League Baseball in. That 10.6 wins above replacement per Baseball Reference. You're not going to find someone better on the market. You just aren't. Judge made a huge bet during this season and won bigger than anybody ever has in his situation. He turned down $31 million a year, which would have already made him the highest paid Yankee position player of all time, and now is worth way more. What would I do if I was in this position? I would make Judge one of the following two offers. Either $45 million a year for 6 years, $270 million total, or $40 million a year for 7 years, $280 million total. I would not go much above $300 million, nor would I go above 7 years. Judge will be 31 early next season, and I can't fathom the idea of Garrett Cole, Giancarlo Stanton, and Aaron Judge all having the chance to age to near 40, getting paid unbelievable amounts of money by the Yankees. They have to be a little bit more fiscally responsible in that regard. If they pay him a lot of money in a shorter term, I think that's how they can win it. Now, when it comes to the rest of the roster, here's my dream wish list for what the Yankees can do in this offseason. Let's go. Sign Aaron Judge back as number 1. Number 2, bring back Andrew Benintendi. Number 3, trade Josh Donaldson, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and Aaron Hicks if you can. Number 4, bring in a high-profile free agent starting pitcher. And number 5, sign Trey Turner. If the Yankees could do all 5 of those things, they would prove that they're spending big again and that their roster is ready to be good enough to contend with Houston. Let's face it, it wasn't in 2022. It never was. They peaked and then crashed in the second half of the season, stumbled into the playoffs, and then lost in a really depressing fashion. If they can complete that dream wish list, they will be right back up where they belong. Which high-profile starter am I talking about? If they opt out, I would love for it to be Justin Verlander or Carlos Rodon. There's no other game-changing starting pitcher out there. If they can get one of those two, that is a statement and a half made by this organization. Now, in terms of the rest of the roster and the rest of the free agency, here's the way it is. According to SpotTrack, the Yankees will have over $100 million coming off the payroll if all of the following players either get their options declined, opt out, or just leave in free agency, period. Aaron Judge, Andrew Benintendi, Zach Britton, Aroldis Chapman, Jamison Tyone, Chad Green, Miguel Castro, Matt Carpenter, Luis Severino with the team option declined, and Anthony Rizzo opting out of the second year of his deal. 10 players would take over $100 million off the payroll. Do I think all those guys are going to leave? I hope not. I already mentioned that I think 2 of them should get re-signed. I think the Yankees are going to bring Severino back. They'd be idiots not to. You will not find a better starting pitcher with better stuff or a bigger presence on the mound for $15 million, which is what Sevy is owed. I hope Rizzo stays, but that one's up to him. Now, with the rest of the positions, they're set at center field with Harrison Bader, set at second base with Gleyber Torres, and they are set at catcher with the platoon of Jose Trevino and Kyle Higashioka. First base, who knows? Because Anthony Rizzo has to decide whether or not to stay. Shortstop and third base, who knows? I want IKF and Donaldson traded. Who knows if they will? The corner outfield spots, again, who knows? Benintendi and Judge are not here right now, and as of now, they'd be stuck with Oswaldo Cabrera and Giancarlo Stanton, and they can do better than that. The rotation, even if they bring back Sevy, it's going to be Cole, Severino, Nestor Cortez, Frankie Montas, and Clark Schmidt or Domingo Germán. That's pretty good, but you can definitely do better. And in the bullpen, there's a lot of pieces that are going to return, but I would love for them to bring in somebody else more. Not Edwin Diaz. He's going to cost $20+ million a year, and the Yankees, I don't think they need a closer. Between Michael King and Clay Holmes, they have a closer there. Maybe a guy like Michael Fulmer or Rafael Montero, or bringing in another lefty like, say, Brad Hand or Andrew Chafin, who might cost a little less money, wouldn't be so bad. And in terms of the rest of the free agent position players, there really aren't that many that I like. If they want to go to another catcher, it's got to be Wilson Contreras or no one else. If Anthony Rizzo opts out and they don't trade for a first baseman, it's got to be Josh Bell or nobody else. Second base, they're good. Shortstop, that big class, Turner, Swanson, possibly Bogarts, and Correa. I already said I want Trey Turner, so that covers that. The other three guys would be good to bring in, don't get me wrong, but I would put Trey Turner above all of them. Third base, if Nolan Arenado opts out, that's great. He's going to cost you $30+ million a year, and they have to spend that on Judge. Outfielders, Michael Brantley, Mitch Haniger, and Brandon Nimmo are the only other guys out there that I like somewhat or like a lot. Nimmo being the guy I like a lot just because he's a little bit younger and can do a lot of the things that a guy like Benintendi can do. But still, I think bringing Benintendi back for a deal of $16 to $18 million a year for 4 to 6 years is a better option. Well, there you have it. There's my dream wish list of what I want the Yankees to do, what I think they should do with Aaron Judge, and where I think the rest of the roster stands and where the rest of the free agent market stands. There's going to be a lot of things going on in the Yankee offseason coming up. I hope they make a lot of the moves I talked about, both at the front office level, managerial level, and roster level. They have got to do things differently to get as good as Houston is, and I think this is an excellent roadmap to get there. So now, all of us Yankee fans just have to sit back and wait and see if they do it. That'll do it for this episode of 20 Minutes with Multz. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like what you heard, like and subscribe. Comment down below. What do you want the Yankees to do this offseason at all the different levels? What will you be happy with? What do you think is actually going to end up happening? Let me know all that down below. I'm Daniel Multz, and I'll talk to you guys next time in our third episode of the week, coming out soon.